It's me, Mikey Pipes. Welcome back to another fresh and exciting episode. Today, we are going to do an annual backflow test on this Febco 805Y. This is their 1-inch double check valve. And we're also going to be doing a backflow test on this Wilkins 975XL2. This is a 2-inch RPZ. This is a reduced pressure zone. Now, normally you'll see an RPZ, and you can tell the difference between this double check valve and this RPZ is that an RPZ has a relief or a discharge on it. Typically, you'll see RPZs in areas when there is a high risk of contaminants entering into the public water supply, such as a car wash, a factory, things of that nature. Normally, we don't see an RPZ in a residential setting. Now here, at this location, we're in an apartment building. Actually, it's a co-op, and there's, I think there's 20 units here. Everyone has their own electric meter. Everyone has their own gas meter. And the only thing that's commonly shared here is the water. Now, this RPZ is immediately after the meter, right? After the RPZ, which feeds the building, we have a double check valve, and that's for an irrigation system, lawn sprinklers. So we're gonna test both today. I'm gonna show you step by step how we test it, and I got my Watts TK9A. Had this bad boy for quite some time, and recently just got it back from American Backflow for the annual certification. You have to have it certified annually to make sure it's still in 100%. Because when we fill out the New York State backflow form, some jurisdictions ask me for the serial number on the test form and also the calibration date. So just got it back from American Backflow. I think this is now the third test that we're gonna do after coming back, and it works flawlessly. The Watts TK9A, very, very expensive. I only do backflow tests and maintain my license in New York State for that, just as an added value to my customers. We've been servicing this building for a number of years, and once a year we come and, a few $100 each test. We test them. It's just gravy. That's all it is gravy. So let's get these bad boys tested. We're gonna start with the double check valve and then work on the reduced pressure zone. So if you are more concerned about how to test an RPZ, you can fast forward a little bit. If you're looking for just a double check, then keep watching. Let's get going. All right, the first thing we're gonna do is that we have to determine direction of flow. And there's always an arrow located on it, but if it's also common sense, here's our 2-inch water main coming into the building. It's sized down, it looks like it's 1.25 inches, inch and a half. Yep, and don't even ask what's that about, but and by the way, there's a little tag there, but you can easily open it. Crazy, right? So come across here, following the direction of flow, there's the RPZ, comes back around, loops up, and now we have a T, so our direction of flow is from left to right. All right, next step, we're going to shut off valve number 2. This is valve number 1. This is valve number 2. Now, it's been closed for the winter, so we don't have, it's closed. So we're going to keep this one closed, and we're going to open up this one. Okay. Now that shut-off valve number 1 is open, we're going to carefully blow off test cocks 2, 3, and 4. This is test cock number 1. This is test cock number 2, 3, and 4. I'm just gonna blow them off a little bit, just make sure there's no debris in there. We'll do one by one. I'm gonna grab a towel and do the other remaining 2. Okay, now we're gonna test check valve number 1. So I'm gonna connect my high pressure hose, right? Now, if these guys wish they wouldn't have put it right there, but as you can see, my high pressure hose is this. My low pressure hose is here, right? And this is my bypass. So we're gonna take the high pressure hose and put that on test cock number 2. And then we're gonna take our low pressure hose and connect it to test cock number 3. Now I'm gonna open up test cocks number 2 and number 3. Come on, get in there. One-handedly. Okay, test cock number 2 is open, and now we're gonna do test cock number 3. Okay, now test cocks 2 and 3 are open. This is valve A, B, and C. We're gonna open up valve number, I tried to put it there. We're gonna open up valve number A, and we're gonna bleed air through the bypass hose by opening the bypass valve. Okay, like that. Now, we're going to close valve number A. Okay, like that. Now, I'm going to bleed air through the lowest pressure hose, which is B, through C, and then we're going to close, there you go, let's get the air out of there. All right, let's get that. Now we're going to close B and C. Now, in order for check valve number 1 to pass, the check valve number 1 must hold 1 PSID or greater in order to pass the test. If it's below 1 PSID, the check valve has failed and needs to be repaired or replaced. As you can see, we're a hair above 1 PSID. Check valve number 1 has passed and we're halfway done with the test. Next, I'm going to close test ports number 2 and test port number 3. All right, and then we're going to remove hoses. Now, we're going to test check valve number 2. I'm going to take my high pressure hose and connect it to test port number 3, and my low pressure hose and connect it to test port number 4. Now I'm going to open up test port number 3. Okay, and test port number 4. Now, the same principle as before, we're going to bleed air through the high pressure side to the bypass. Okay, we're going to close A. Now we're going to bleed the air through the low pressure side. And close B and C. Same rules applies. Must hold 1 PSID or greater in order for it to pass. And we are right on 1 PSID, so check valve number 2 also passes. Now, this completes the test, but we're not done yet. We're gonna close test port number 4, and we're gonna close test port number 3. Get in there. Okay, we're gonna take off our hoses and the adapters that I installed, and this completes the test of this Febco. Oh, that's still open. Oops. Of this Febco 805 double check valve. One of the things I always do is I open up my valves, all of them. I make sure everything drains down. As you can see, I'm draining down to a pit. So normally if you're in a house, you get a bucket, you get a towel, what have you, and shake it free and then put it away for storage in the case. This is very expensive. To replace this now is almost $1,900. This device, $1,900. Plus, I have to have it certified annually, which if I pay for expedited service, overnight shipping, it's gonna cost me roughly $250. If I do it, if I plan it in advance and I want to be, I don't need it for a little while, you know, I could spend $100 plus shipping and have it certified. You also have your recertification fee. Every 3 years in New York State, you have to sit in a class for 8 hours and be recertified every 3 years, which is also an expense. So, like I said, it all comes down to giving more value to your customers. You know, in my area, not a lot of plumbers have backflow certification, but a lot of landscapers do, and a lot of irrigation companies do. Because when you put in a irrigation system, you know, in a house or in a property, you need to have some means of backflow prevention. Now, you can install what we call a pressure vacuum breaker, or PVB, outside. It's got to be elevated X amount of inches off the highest, you know, head. But in most cases, you see this, a double check valve, 3/4 inch, and that's what we have, generally. Some houses have bigger water surfaces, bigger lawns. I've seen 2-inch in certain properties, in little Taj Mahals. All right, this concludes the Febco 805Y double check valve, this 1-inch. We're now gonna focus on the Wilkins 975XL2 reduced pressure zone. All right, let's get it done. Okay, first things first. As soon as we get here, we're just gonna make sure that, there you go. Oh. Oh, we're gonna make sure there's no discharge from the vent or the relief valve. And as you can see, it's dry, okay? Now, determine direction of flow. We've already determined that here's my incoming water supply, comes across there. So my direction of flow is from left to right. Okay, let's go over test ports. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. I put on the adapters so I can hook up the gauges. Now we're gonna blow off test cocks number 2, 3, and 4. We're blowing them off to make sure that there's no debris inside, that right after the threaded connection on the test ports. If there's any debris in there, you're gonna F up your backflow testing tool, and then you're F'd, right? Repairs, if this thing is $1,900, right? Imagine what the repair is. Ridiculous. Okay, now let's connect our high pressure hose to test cock number 2 and the low pressure hose to test cock number 3. I'm gonna close shutoff valve number 2, right? And now we're gonna open up test ports number 2 and test ports number 3, like that, okay? Next, we're gonna bleed air, right? Bleed the water through valves A and C, okay? All right, closing A, and now I'm gonna open up B, do that as well. All right, and now I'm gonna close B and close C, okay? Just like that. Now, after doing this, right? After bleeding the hoses, we're gonna make note of the pressure drop across check valve number 1. And if it's less than 5 PSID, check valve number 1 is faulty. Let's take a look at the PSID, and we are at 4.5, and it is slowly dropping. So check valve number 1 is faulty in this particular case. See that? So at this point, it does not pay to continue to test check valve number 1. We're gonna make repairs to test check valve number 2. We're gonna see if there's any debris. Take a look at PSID, it's dropping, right? We're gonna see if there's any debris on check valve number 1, right? So this becomes a great example of what to do when your RPZ fails. Okay, we're gonna close shutoff valve number 1. Okay, now I'm gonna go to the truck, I'm gonna grab a wrench, and we're gonna take this head off and see if we have any debris on the check valve. Now when I take this off, we have some springs there, so I'm gonna hold back on this with one hand and take this off. Okay, see that big giant spring? Okay, it's a big giant spring. Now, I'm gonna take out this, and if you could look, all right, a lot of cocky there. So it's kind of like a washer on a faucet, right? We're gonna take our Phillips screwdriver and spin this around and give her some new life. And make note of this, and we'll order the rebuild kit, because next year when we come back here, we're gonna put it in. Now I gotta be like Hercules. Okay, that's gonna rest right there. Okay. Check valve number 1 is back together. All right, shutoff valve number 1 is back on. No discharge from vent. Now let's bleed from valve A and C. Okay, bleed the air, closing A. Now let's open up low pressure. And now we're gonna close A, B, and C. Okay, and remember it's gotta hold at 5 PSID. All right, next we're gonna test the relief valve, right? And quite easy. We're gonna open up control valve number A, and then slowly open B. Now the relief valve should open at 2 PSID or less. So we're lowering that, opening B slowly, and we have discharge, great. Above 2 PSID. So now we've tested check valve number 1, and well, we made sure check valve number 1 is good, and now we also test the relief valve, so that's also good. Now we're going to open test cock number 4 to reestablish pressure and watch as our TK9A goes back up. So we're gonna open up test cock number 4 to reestablish pressure. Okay, good. And we're back at 6 PSID. Great. Now, if it should go back, the needle should go back to the original pressure drop. If there's no discharge from the relief valve, check valve number 1 is good. If there's discharge from the relief valve, check valve number 1 is faulty. Stop, make repairs, and go from there. Now we're gonna we're gonna test check valve number 2 right now. Now, and I'm sorry if this is like a little complicated. It is not really that hard. Email me or email me and I'll send you the proper instructions. There's 2 different versions of them. I'm using an updated version that I received when I got my last recertification. Now, we're gonna take our bypass hose and connect it to test port number 4. Now I'm gonna open up test port number 4. Okay, and we are going to open, we're going to open up A and C on our device, and we're going to see if there's any discharge from the relief valve. Which there is. Where's that residual? No, that's also a fail. So the relief valve, check valve number 2 is also faulty, which kind of makes sense since we had debris on check valve number 1. We're also going to have it on check valve number 2. Kind of makes perfect sense, right? And that is discharge. It's very slightly, but nonetheless, it is discharge. So let's repeat the steps with check valve number 2. Spring to give. Okay. As you can see, just as cockeyed up as the other one. All right, flipped her around. Let's put everything back together. Nice little O-ring popped out on there. Okay, make sure that goes back in. Now, this is gonna go back in there like that. I got my spring. A little difficult to do, but we'll get it in. Okay. Sucks when it's upside down.
It's like soldering upside down, but soldering upside down is pretty easy because the solder goes to heat. All right, now I'll take my wrench. In this case, channel locks. Works for me. All right, and we're gonna re-establish pressure in the RPZ. Just gonna reconnect these. I loosened them up to just discharge some water. Now we're gonna open up. Okay. And now we're gonna retest number 2, check valve. Okay, she passed. Now we're gonna take off our hoses. I closed 2, 3, and 4 already. We're gonna open up the valves on the Watts TK9A. All right, make sure we get all the water out of there. I do keep this in my truck year round. And as long as we get all the water out of there, it's not a problem. So let that hang there for a little bit. I'm gonna fill out the paperwork, make note of it, of everything. Also, make sure we recommend and also price out the 875 XL2, the 2-inch rebuild kit for this. Because right now, again, you saw how filthy this water is. We already flipped down the washers once, and we're not gonna be able to do that again. So it's a good idea to make them aware of it and be well and move on our way. So the Febco 805Y was fine, nothing to do with that. The Wilkins 975 2-inch RPZ, we had to flip the washers over on both check valves in order to make sure this passed the test. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If I left something out, please let me know in the comment section down below. I was following the directions, nonetheless. And if you got something out of this, let me get your thoughts and feedback down in the comment section down below. You know, I'm not creating these videos of the work that we do, you know, just for my own health. I do it to share what we do, you know, try to educate. You know, the goal at the end of the day is to learn from one another. And if you learn something new every day, you can go on to the next. All right, guys. Catch you on the next one. Be well. God bless. Stay safe.